What's up, how you doing? Tonight we're gonna make some Italian sausages. I like the Polish ones too, but they're a bit harder to find. I'm a big fan of Bobby Vinton, and I always imagine being invited to his house and they make Polish food for me to eat that night. I'm a big fan of Polish food. But tonight we're having the Italian sausages here. These are very good. I'd like to get a cannoli too after this. I remember when I was a kid, 12 years old, those were my arcade days. I would go to the arcade, a place called Teddy Bear's Arcade. I'd get on the bus and then the train, and I'd get off at downtown, walk around a little bit, and then I'd go play all day on the weekends. That particular day, I was going around this area where they were doing construction, and they had plywood around where the sidewalk is, so you couldn't see on the other side. And I kept thinking, I may run into my uncle down here because he lives in that area, and then he's going to say, what are you doing down here? And as I'm thinking that, I take the right, and who pops up in front of me? My uncle. And I was going to continue walking, but since we made eye contact, I realized that he had noticed me. And he said, what are you doing down here? I said, I'm going to the arcade. He's like, why don't you come with me? I'm going shopping. And I had a desire that day to go to the north end of town and get some Italian sausage there with onions and peppers. I was craving this. But anyway, I ended up going with him shopping that day and spent a few hours there. And then finally, we finished the shopping and ended up bringing the stuff to his house there where my aunt was looking. And I was like, they're going to call my house and say he was downtown today. I never would tell people where I was going. I would end up downstairs in the yard, then I'd take off. I never got shadowed around when I was a kid. I kind of had a lot of freedom, and so I would disappear on the weekends, and nobody really asked, where'd you go? They figured I was somewhere in the neighborhood playing, but I wasn't. I was downtown. Different time back then. Nowadays, kids are shadowed around, which I'm not a big fan of. I think kids should have a lot of time to play, because these are the childhood years. If you don't play now, you're never going to play. But now, you know, you get shadowed around a lot, and it takes away from the fun. So I was a big train guy back then. I'm still a big train guy. I would get on the train sometimes, and I would ride all day on the subway system. I had a favorite stop. I'd take a break at this stop. They had a Dunkin' Donuts there, and I would get a honey dip Dunkin' Donut, really tasty, and I'd take a break, and then I'd get on the trains again. Sometimes I would end up at the airport. Sometimes in the wintertime, I would end up at the beach when there was snow on the sand. Very fun times. Kids don't know about that stuff these days. Now they're under the microscope constantly because they may get kidnapped. Yeah, but you can't live like that either, you know. You can't worry like that all the time. Anyway, that's what happened back then. Big fan of the arcade in those days. Defender. Couldn't get enough of Defender. That was my number one game. And I remember one Saturday, it was late. I had just finished playing Defender, last quarter finished, and as I'm about to leave, I look up and there's this crowd around this Asian girl. And she's playing a game that looks like Defender, but it's more sophisticated. And I'm looking and I wonder, what is that? And it was Stargate, Defender 2. And she had 1,000,000 something points up there and a ton of ships, free guys as they say. And I watched it for a while, but it was starting to get late and I had to leave. I don't know what she got as a score, but the next week when I was down there again, next weekend, started playing that game, Stargate. And I became a fan of that too, although it is a lot more complicated than Defender. Plus it has a little wormhole. If you pick up all the guys and go through the wormhole, you get a ton of points. It's all bonus points. Good times back then. So like I was saying, that day when I ran into my uncle downtown, he was with his son, my cousin. So we got to hang around and we had a good time. It was not bad. We did some grocery shopping, and then I brought the stuff. I helped them bring the stuff to their house. But when I got up to the top step, I dropped off the stuff and I took off like a lightning bolt. I went to the arcade and I made a pit stop at the Italian part of town, and I got a sausage with onions and peppers, and it was on a bun, so it was pretty good. Anyway, good memories back then. I'm a big fan of onions. My grandfather during the Great Depression would get a long piece of bread and a raw onion and peel it and eat it with the bread. Good meal. A lot of calories on that. I bet you Bobby Vinton's mother and grandmother and probably wife cooked really good Polish food. I think they're from Pennsylvania. Probably live in Florida now, but originally I think they're from Pennsylvania. And probably Lawrence Welk, his wife, and mother and grandmother, they probably had really good cooking skills. Like that German food too. Very tasty, sticks to your ribs. Like that Bobby Vinton song, Melody of Love. Big fan of that song. My parents, big fans of that song also. Melody of Love. Blue Velvet. Mr. Lonely. A lot of good tunes. Guy could sing. Good voice. Saw him live a few years ago. I think he's retired now. Got to be in his 80s.